This video examines Microsoft's Windows Recall Artificial Intelligence feature decision and why it unraveled. In May 2024, Microsoft introduced Copilot PCs as a new class of Windows 11 computers designed to run more artificial intelligence work directly on the device, and Recall was presented as a flagship feature, with an editor's note pointing to a June 18, 2024 preview. Recall was built to create a searchable record of what you had already seen on your PC, and the plan assumed secured core hardware with the Microsoft Pluton security processor and user controls would make that workable. The stakes were clear. Microsoft's message in May 2024 framed the PC as hitting an inflection point, where richer artificial intelligence experiences would come from the cloud and the device working together, rather than relying on only one side. The fiscal 2024 annual report described Copilot PCs as a new class of Windows 11 PCs, and it said Microsoft was working with partners such as AMD, Intel, Qualcomm, and PC makers to bring them to market. The Secure Future Initiative expansion also stated that security would be prioritized above all else, even over other features, which raised the bar for anything that stored or summarized user activity. That standard mattered. Windows had been circling this "find what you did before" idea for years, and Timeline is the most obvious example. April 2018 brought Timeline to Windows 10 as a way to jump back into past activity, and that concept stayed in the product vocabulary even as the mechanics changed. Starting in July 2021, Microsoft documented that Timeline could not upload new activity for cross-device sync through a Microsoft account. Starting in January 2024, it documented that cloud storage of Microsoft Entra ID user activity history would stop as the Timeline experience shifted in Windows 11. If this analysis helps, subscribe. May 2024 is the moment the choice became concrete. Microsoft decided to ship Recall in preview on Copilot PCs starting June 18, 2024. Microsoft described Recall as exclusive to Copilot PCs, and it later said that trying it in the Windows Insider program would require a Copilot PC because of hardware requirements. That decision meant the flagship demo feature would ship close to the new hardware launch window. The alternative path was available: keep Recall in a longer Insider and Enterprise pilot until the final opt-in and enclave-based design was fully validated. The logic behind Recall was easy to communicate, and Microsoft's support documentation leaned on that clarity. It described Recall as an explorable timeline paired with semantic-powered search, meaning you could search by meaning and context rather than by exact file names or titles. Recall also required opting in to save snapshots, and Windows asked for permission before saving them. That promise was simple: a local memory you can search later. It sounded practical. Microsoft also tried to show the boundaries, not just the benefits, and its documentation put those boundaries in plain terms. The support documentation stated that snapshots and derived contextual information are saved and encrypted on the local hard drive, and they are not shared with Microsoft or third parties. Microsoft later stated that Recall is opt-in during Copilot PC setup and remains off unless the user turns it on. And it stated that snapshots and the associated vector database information are always encrypted. That framing was meant to signal control. This was designed to feel local first. Hardware gating was the second pillar, and the requirements were specific. The support documentation listed Recall requirements that include a secured core Copilot PC and a neural processing unit, NPU, rated at 40 trillion operations per second, along with 16 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. It also stated that enabling Recall requires at least 50 gigabytes of free storage, and that saving snapshots pauses automatically when free storage drops below 25 gigabytes. Those numbers were not decorative. They were meant to keep Recall inside a narrow device class. Identity and encryption were the third pillar, and Microsoft tied those pieces to the user's sign-in flow. The support documentation stated that enabling recall requires device encryption or BitLocker, and enrollment in Windows Hello Enhanced Sign-In Security with a biometric sign-in option. September 2024 brought a deeper claim about protection. Microsoft said encryption keys are protected through the Trusted Platform Module, TPM, and the Microsoft Pluton security processor, tied to the user's Windows Hello Enhanced Sign-In Security identity. Microsoft also said those keys can only be used within a virtualization-based security enclave, an isolated protected area for sensitive operations. That was the intended backstop. It was built to reduce casual access. Yet the idea of regular snapshotting raised immediate alarms, and outside scrutiny arrived almost instantly. On May 22, 2024, the UK Information Commissioner's Office said it was making inquiries with Microsoft to understand what privacy safeguards were in place for recall, particularly under GDPR and the Data Protection Act requirements. In early June 2024, security researcher Kevin Beaumont triggered a sharper test when Wired published reports that preview versions of Recall stored screenshots in an unencrypted database, and that a tool called Total Recall could extract the collected data. The timing gap mattered. A launch story turned into a security story within days. Within weeks, the rollout plan changed in public. Reuters reported on June 13, 2024, that Microsoft said it would not roll out Recall with new computers the following week, and would instead preview it first with the Windows Insider program, citing privacy and security concerns. Microsoft's own June 7, 2024, Recall update post originally laid out the feature and the plan, and later updates on that same post shifted Recall away from broad preview availability on June 18, 2024, toward an insider-first path. That changed again when the insider timing moved, first to October 2024, then to December 2024. Delays became part of the story. That sequence created slow damage because Recall was no longer just a feature, it became a gating problem for rollout. Microsoft Learn documentation described Recall as an opt-in experience that requires end-user consent, and said users can enable or disable saving snapshots at any time. Microsoft Learn also stated that on managed devices, Recall is disabled and removed by default, and IT admins cannot start saving snapshots for end users on their own through Microsoft Intune or Endpoint Manager. That rule is not a temporary patch, it changes how the feature can spread. Managed device defaults shaped everything that came next, and Microsoft Learn made the constraint explicit. Recall may have been framed as a flagship Copilot PC feature, yet Microsoft Learn said it is disabled and removed by default in managed environments, which blocks the normal enterprise pattern of IT enabling a capability at scale. Microsoft Learn reiterated that end-user consent is required, and users can turn snapshot saving on or off, while IT admins cannot switch snapshot saving on for them. The prerequisites added another layer. Microsoft Learn listed specific Copilot PC hardware and the April 2025 Windows non-security preview update or later. For enterprise deployment, Microsoft Purview data governance policies would need to account for Recall's sensitivity filtering capabilities. Adoption depended on users, hardware, and the software baseline. That is a narrow funnel. A point of no return showed up when Recall shifted from a launch highlight into a rebuilt, controlled capability with a later official date. Microsoft Learn listed April 25, 2025 as the general availability release date for Recall. On April 25, 2025, the Windows Experience blog said Recall is opt-in and includes Windows Hello Sign-In, data encryption, and isolation. The blog also said recall data is processed locally and not shared with Microsoft or third parties. Microsoft's support documentation also stated recall is an optional Windows feature, and it said removing it deletes previously saved snapshots. Recall survived alongside its companion feature Click to Do, which shipped as part of the same AI-powered Windows Experience update. It came back with tighter defaults and an exit ramp. In the order of operations, the lesson is clear, and Microsoft's own language makes the contrast hard to miss. In May 2024, the Secure Future Initiative expansion defined Secure by Default as enabling and enforcing protections by default, rather than treating them as optional settings. In June 2024, Outside Reporting described Microsoft switching recall to opt-in and adding further security measures after backlash and researcher demonstrations, which turned the rollout into a long redesign cycle. For features that resemble surveillance, the architecture and the default posture need to be finished before the marketing moment, because retrofits turn a headline feature into a risk control program. It was reasonable at the time. It was costly in the end. For more decisions like this, subscribe.